We proceed with the problem 2 on chapter 6. So step number 1, we are going to read the directions. That's very, very important. Read and understand directions. Create an integer array named dice2 with the size of 6. So notice that it's very, very similar to the previous problem. When we created an integer array named dice1 with the size of 10, we have to create one with the size of 6. Okay? Populate each array location with the roll of a 6-sided die. Hint an int value 1 through 6. Print the array not using an index for loop. Okay, so it is very much the same thing that we did before. So what we could do is just copy and paste. Copy and now paste it. And we are going to replace dice1 for dice2. Now, instead of 10 elements, we are going to use 6 elements, right? And notice that then I will have to change dice1 everywhere. So that's not a good idea. What can we do? Well, let's do the following. Instead of doing that, let's go ahead and copy this. And I'm going to create another array, and I'm going to call it dice2. And we are going to make it 6. Okay, so now what's the problem? Well, this is not going to make any difference because dice2, we're not using it. So now what if I want to use dice2 and generate the random numbers and then display it? Well, then I will have to change here. Instead of dice1, I have to change it for dice2 everywhere, right? Which we can do it that way. But then if in the future we want to use dice1 and dice2, we're going to be in problem, right? Because then we're going to need multiple for loops. So definitely that's not an efficient way of doing it. We could do it that way, but it's not efficient. So what would be much better is to create a method to generate the random numbers and also to display. So how can we do that? Well, we are going to proceed to create those methods. And we are going to call the first one. Let's go ahead and create this public static int. And we are going to call it ren between. So we are going to receive 2 integer values that are going to be the min and max values. So all we are going to do is to return this value. And that's pretty much all it is. So it just returns the random value. So every time that we want to generate a random value, we don't need this long formula. All we have to do is to call this function, right, or this method, and now we are going to call it ren between, and then we pass min and max as parameter. So this is great because now we don't have to rely on this very, very long formula. We just use this method ren between, which is going to we are passing min and max, right, as parameters, and then we receive them as arguments. We calculate the value in this line of code, and then we return that value, and that value will be assigned to the variable random. So we are simplifying the code and also allowing us to reuse it later on. So the next method, we are going to call it fill with random. So public static void fill with random. And once again, we are going to need a min and max, but first we are going to receive an integer array. And so what we can do is to copy this for loop, paste it, and now instead of referring to dice1, we need to refer to array because that's what we receive as argument, right? Array, everywhere that it says dice1, we're going to replace it by array, right? And now this random, and notice that we no longer have this random variable here. So what we have to do is go ahead and declare it, or we could just get rid of it by placing it right here, right in between, and now we no longer need this, okay? And very, very simple for loop, just one line of code, and because it is one line of code, we no longer need the curly braces, right? Just one line of code, and we have this method. So then when we want to use it, we are going to just call it fill with random, and we no longer need this all these lines of code. We can just do fill with random, and we say -1, and then min and max, right? Okay, so this is it. Now, if we want -2, we are going to do fill with random, and then we do -2. That's it. So notice that we don't need to repeat the for loop. We are just calling the same method twice, and then we get it. Okay, very, very simple. Okay, so we are displaying -1, right? Now, how do we display -2? Well, can we create a method to do that? Yes, absolutely. So we can create a method to display, and public static void display, and then we receive the array. Okay, and here notice that it says print the array out using an index for loop. Wonderful. So we could just recycle the exact same for loop, but now instead of assigning a value, we just display it, right? So system.out.print, and once again we could use printf. We're gonna do %d space, comma, and then we are going to display array, and we need to pass in square braces the index, which is going to be I, right? Because that's the looping variable. So now what we can do is, instead of this for loop, we just say display -1, and there we go, we got it. And same way, -2, okay? And now we are gonna be displaying -2. Notice how the main method now becomes very short, because we have all these other methods that are doing all the work pretty much, okay? So let's go ahead and run it. Now there's a little problem. I'm going to add a /n so that the dice values don't come one after another one, but they come in separate lines. So we are going to compile and run, and notice that it tells me that there's a problem, okay? So let's find out what the problem is. Syntax error, okay? So looks like I'm missing, let's see. Okay, I no longer need this. Let's go ahead and run it. And there we go. We get -1 and -2. All right. Now notice that it tells us that we should only print -1. Okay. Which we have to follow what it's telling us. But having -1, we should only display -2. But having -1, it may help us in the future. So what we could do is just comment it out. All the places that have -1. And then it's going to do exactly what we are told, right? -2, and that's it, right? But once again, in the future, we may use it, so we still have it, all right? So it depends what the description is asking you to do. So I hope that it is clear and you are getting more practice.